So let's look at the first the first body paragraph. And with every body paragraph, we definitely want to make sure that our topic sentence, that very first sentence, defines what we're talking about in this entire paragraph. We try to be not super specific, but we definitely want to give our audience a guide as we go through the entire reading, right? So they start off with, Colesville realizes how schools across America are still segregated upon color, which is not wrong. It just seems a little bit redundant, a little bit repetitive to what was said in the first paragraph, because they've already mentioned that the school systems discriminate against students of color, students who are based on class. So this is your chance to perhaps refer to something specific in the reading itself, and then to bring that as the paragraph's definer. So we'll further on. They further write, Hispanic and African-American students go to schools that are broken down, schools that have cracks, leaks, mold, and poor ventilation units. So this paragraph's not really about how schools are segregated on color necessarily. This paragraph seems to be more about the conditions of these schools, right? Because a lot of this talks about broken down, cracks, leaks, mold, and so forth. So I would recommend actually this paragraph be redefined as one that talks about maybe the conditions of schools on, say, the color students versus, say, the white students. These schools are overcrowded and, in fact, violent for the cities that they are in, breed crime. And they brought this back from the first paragraph, but at the same time, is it really necessarily related, right? Because Colesville's essay, it's not necessarily about the cities themselves, it's more about the service that's been done to these students. So it's kind of hard to say if this sort of point that they're doing, both in the intro paragraph and in the body paragraph, relate. Students go to school to survive rather than flourish and reach their zenith in their education. Actually, this sounds like a pretty good intro sentence for this paragraph, because check this out. This then will talk about the fact that students in these schools, they go to learn survival, to basically survive their environment rather than to reach their zenith for education, rather to actually get an education and improve. That sounds like a better intro sentence right there. I would have put that right there. Colesville stresses the fact of how there is no political will to help these schools. True, and this could be another paragraph as well, because this feels like a whole other point, unless this is sort of like a combination along with that first intro sentence that you're doing with this first topic sentence, right? So kind of a complex point to put in the middle of the sentence or paragraph here. Students that attend these schools are viewed as not worth the effort to fix, and not a bad point. I think you want to go specific here. If anything in there might refer or relate to this point here. Their education is less valued to the economy, therefore they are put at so many disadvantages compared to middle-class white schools. And perhaps this is where you start putting in some quotes, right, in terms of like, well, right, you've defined the fact that these schools are much less maintained than the white schools, but can you give some imagery here? Can you give me some quotes? I asked you in the homework to give me some examples from the reading. In this case, this could have been the spot. These students are being trained to work at the lowest level of the economy. I'm talking retail, fast food, etc. This is a weird phrase. Check this out. Suddenly, they get really personal, really slangish, right? I'm talking retail, fast food. And it's kind of awkward to suddenly be like, whoa, your voice came out, right? Which is not bad. A good voice is always definitive. I'd rather you write with a voice than write generic. So when they do this, I'm thinking, you know what? Keep this voice, but make it more consistent, make it more thrown out. Don't be afraid to write like this as well. You can definitely do a mix between kind of like a full half of academic writing and another half of like, here's my personal responses on the issue here in terms of how Colesville's doing the whole thing. Quick reminder, try to avoid etc, etc. We tried to avoid that because the list goes on forever, so we never know what end your list has. And then they finally end, whereas white schools are getting prepared for the better careers, such as doctors and engineers. And again, I like some evidence. I like to know some quotes from the reading. I like to know how this is possible or how it is true. So there's a couple of opportunities in this paragraph that could have used evidence from the reading itself. Always try to provide evidence. Always try to back yourself up.